Hello, my name is Bruce Hutchinson. Welcome to my 3 observations on the narrative structure of Mad Max Fury Road. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go to thehutchfiles.com to get the full breakdown of Fury Road. You can also find my other breakdowns, information on my films, and subscribe to get future posts sent directly to your inbox. Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller and written by George Miller, Brendan McCarthy, and Nick Lathouris, is considered one of the great action movies of the 21st century. Most people focus on, of course, the fantastic visuals, the nonstop action. Of course, there's all kinds of behind-the-scenes drama that you can read about between Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy, and all the trials and tribulations that went into the making of the movie. But for our purposes, I'm interested in the narrative structure of the movie and the way the movie cleverly works with the concept of the protagonist to drive us through the plot, as well as how the final act kind of works a little differently from our typical final acts in movies. So let's start with our first observation, which is really the first 2 observations. Really, I've kind of got 2 observations, but 2 of them, the first one can kind of be broken down into 2 parts. So this first observation is on the split protagonist of Mad Max Fury Road. I think when you watch the movie and you ask the question, who is the protagonist, you might feel a little stuck. Is Furiosa our protagonist, or is Max our protagonist? After all, the movie has Max's name in the title. The movie starts with Max as a character. However, the movie really does seem built around Furiosa. And of course, we have a sequel to Fury Road, which stars Furiosa. So in some ways, she seems like perhaps the more important of the 2 characters. But what I really think that George Miller and the other writers have done is really clever. I think what they've done is they've split the protagonist and they've taken the goals of the 2 characters and kind of wedded them together on one level, but also split them in some interesting ways. So let's take a look at how that works. Let's look at Furiosa first. I think Furiosa's external goal is what drives the movie and provides its structure. Her goal is to get to the green place with the women that she has stolen from Immortan Joe. Basically getting them to safety is her goal. Initially, it seems like she fails at that. She gets to the end of Act 2 and, of course, discovers that the green place is gone. And as we'll talk about in a few minutes, eventually makes the decision to return to the Citadel to try to take it over from Immortan Joe. So Furiosa provides our external goal, and in general, when we're looking at movies, external goals provide structure. So it's her goal of getting away with the women, trying to go to the green place, and then returning to the Citadel that provides the structure of the movie. So in that sense, I think we could say that Furiosa is the protagonist, or at least the protagonist that provides the structure. Now, while her goal is meaningful, I think if we actually look at her character, she doesn't really have a true internal goal. There's nothing about her personally, emotionally, mentally, psychologically that she needs to change. She doesn't really have too much internal conflict that she's trying to overcome or deal with. She is the one who is driving the plot, who is providing the structure. Now what gets interesting is we bring Max into the equation. Max gets paired up with Furiosa, and of course later in the movie shares some of the act goals with Furiosa, and does end up sharing the movie level goal with Furiosa of finding a safe place for them as well as the women. But what Max has that Furiosa lacks is an internal goal. Max seems to be looking for redemption. And this gives him a little bit of depth that Furiosa doesn't seem to have. So when we watch the movie, we see a series of flashbacks where perhaps a young girl has died or been killed in some way that Max didn't seem to do enough to stop or wasn't able to rescue her or save her. So he seems to have this internal goal coming very close to motivation to kind of get redemption for this past failure that we see through these flashbacks. And while initially he starts as an enemy of Furiosa's and sort of just wants to get away from her, eventually he partners with her, and as he spends more time with her and the other women, and as we see more of his flashbacks, his internal goal drives him more strongly to aid Furiosa in succeeding at the external goal. So we kind of have this interesting split protagonist where the external goal is primarily being provided by one character, Furiosa, and the internal goal is being provided by another character in Max. And so this is really just one observation, that is the concept of the split protagonist, but we can really split it into two, that is seeing how Furiosa works as a protagonist through her external goal, and then seeing how Max works as a protagonist through his internal goal. The second observation I have is about the final act. The final act is really interesting. Generally, when we get to a final act, we find characters at their lowest, and we also find characters who are confronting the antagonist more directly. Both of these are actually true. When we get to the end of Act 2, the green place turns out to be gone. There are hardly any survivors left from Furiosa's homeland, the green place. And so all of the characters are at their lowest. In addition, they finally make the decision at Max's urging, rather than to keep going on into the desert or trying to cross the desert to find the ocean, he suggests they return to the Citadel. In doing so, they are going to have to confront Immortan Joe directly, which is, of course, another thing that we're used to seeing in final acts. What we don't often see is characters returning to where they started, and that's what makes the final act of Mad Max Fury Road really interesting, is that Max's suggestion that they go back means that the characters basically are turning around and retracing the route that they just took in order to go back to where they started. That's really interesting. It's really unusual. It's a little reminiscent of the very first Alien movie, in which our main character Ripley sets a self-destruct for her ship, the Nostromo, and then changes her mind and then has to go back to where she went in order to try to turn off the self-destruct. In this case, she fails, and so then she just has to go back to her shuttle and try to escape. So we do see her kind of going one way, retracing her steps, going back the other way, and then finally escaping. So it's a little different, but there is that similarity. We get into Mad Max Fury Road, and we see our characters deciding really to just go back to where they started, but to try to change the conditions of the place they started at. And of course, in the fight that they have going back to the Citadel, they're able to defeat Immortan Joe. And when they return to the Citadel, there's nobody left who's truly in charge. That allows Furiosa to take over the Citadel and succeed at her external goal of finding a safe place. That also means that Max is successful in his internal goal. He gets redemption. He has finally stopped and cared about other people, helped them to get success, helped them to get safety. And of course, at the end of the movie, he slips off because, of course, he is always going to be a loner in the end. But we see that both characters succeed at their goals. So I hope you've enjoyed this short dive into the protagonist and into the final act of Mad Max Fury Road. Again, please check out thehutchfiles.com to find more breakdowns like this and get more insights into the narrative structures of a lot of different movies. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, or thanks for reading.